They promised me a birthday. After 67 years on this earth, after raising 2 kids alone, after burying a husband and rebuilding a life from nothing, my daughter called and said the words I never thought I'd hear again. Mom, we're throwing you a party, a real one, the whole family. Danny's flying in from Seattle. The grandkids made decorations. We want you here. We want to celebrate you. So I believed her. I bought a new dress. I packed my bag. I drove 9 hours from my little house in Savannah all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina, with a trunk full of hope and a heart full of something I hadn't felt in a long time. And when I got there, the house was dark. The driveway was empty, and taped to the front door was a note that changed everything. But let me go back to where it started. It was a Thursday evening in early September when the phone rang. I was sitting on my porch watching the sun go down behind the live oaks, the way I do most nights. The air smelled like jasmine and warm earth, that particular Savannah smell that never gets old, no matter how many years you breathe it in. My daughter's name lit up the screen, and I nearly knocked over my sweet tea reaching for it. Lisa didn't call often, once a month if I was lucky, and even then it was rushed, distracted, full of half-sentences and background noise, kids yelling, the TV going, Brad's voice somewhere in the distance asking what was for dinner. Mom, hi! You got a minute? I turned down the radio. I always had a minute for her. I always had an hour, a day, a lifetime. But I'd learned not to say that because it sounded desperate, and desperate mothers get avoided. Of course, sweetheart, what's going on? There was a pause. I heard her take one of those breaths, the kind she takes before she asks for something. I braced myself. Maybe the water heater broke again. Maybe Brad's truck needed a transmission. Maybe one of the kids needed braces and the insurance wouldn't cover it. So Danny and I were talking, she said, and we realized your birthday's coming up. 67, that's a big one. I almost laughed. 67 isn't a big one. 65 was. 70 will be. 67 is just another year of waking up and wondering who's going to call. But I didn't say that either. We want to do something special, she continued. Like really special. We want to throw you a party at our place. The Saturday before your birthday, Danny's going to fly in from Seattle. The kids are already making a banner. Brad said he'd grill. We'll do the whole thing, cake, candles, the works. Mom, you deserve this. My throat closed up the way it does when something catches you off guard. When you've been holding your breath for so long that the first real inhale feels like drowning. Lisa, I don't need a party. I just need to see you. That's why we're doing it. It's been too long. Way too long. I know that's mostly my fault, but I want to fix it. Please say you'll come. I said yes before I could think about it. I said yes the way you say yes to something you've been praying for, fast, before the universe can change its mind. We talked for another 20 minutes. She told me about the kids. Emma was 12 now and obsessed with volleyball. Jake was 9 and building model rockets in the garage. She told me Brad had gotten a promotion at the distribution center, assistant manager now, better hours, more money. She sounded warm. She sounded like my daughter again. Like the girl who used to sit on the same porch and tell me about her day while I braided her hair. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time watching the fireflies blink in the yard. I didn't cry. I was afraid if I started, I wouldn't stop. The next morning, I went shopping. I hadn't bought a new dress in 3 years, maybe 4. I went to that boutique on Broughton Street. The one with the window displays I always admired but never walked into because it felt like a place for women who still had reasons to dress up. The saleswoman, a young girl with kind eyes and gold hoops, helped me pick out a navy blue dress with small white flowers along the hem. Simple but elegant. She said it brought out my eyes. I bought it without looking at the price tag. For once, I didn't care. Over the next 3 weeks, I prepared. I baked Danny's favorite, lemon pound cake with cream cheese frosting, the recipe my mother taught me. I made Emma a friendship bracelet with her volleyball team colors because Lisa had mentioned she loved those. For Jake, I found a vintage star chart at the bookshop on Habersham Street, a real one from 1971, framed and mounted. showing the constellations you could see from the Carolina Piedmont. I thought a boy who builds rockets would like to know where they were headed. For Lisa, I wrapped a locket that had belonged to my mother. Inside was a tiny photograph of the two of us taken when Lisa was about 4. She's sitting on my lap on this very porch, laughing at something I can't remember. I'd been saving it for the right moment. This felt like it. For Brad, I got a nice bottle of bourbon. I never knew what to get Brad. He was a man of few words and fewer interests, at least the kind he shared with me. Bourbon seemed safe. I also got my hair done. I went to Charlene's salon on the south side, the one I only went to for church and funerals. Charlene trimmed and curled and sprayed and told me I looked 10 years younger. I didn't believe her, but I appreciated the effort. The week before the drive, I was the happiest I'd been in years. I told my neighbor Walter I'd be gone for the weekend. He said he'd keep an eye on the house and feed the cat. I told my friend Ruthie at Bible study that I was going to Charlotte for my birthday. She grabbed both my hands and said, "Honey, it's about time that girl remembered she has a mother. Enjoy every second." I told myself I would. The morning of the drive, I woke at 5. I loaded the trunk carefully, the cake in its carrier, the gifts in a bag padded with towels so nothing would shift. I checked my dress hanging in the back seat. I filled a thermos with coffee. I looked at my house one more time. The little yellow bungalow with the tin roof and the crepe myrtles out front, and I whispered a prayer. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for this. The drive was long but beautiful. I took I-16 to I-95, then up through Columbia and into Charlotte. 9 hours with a stop for gas and a chicken biscuit outside Florence. I listened to Motown the whole way. The Temptations, Aretha, Smokey Robinson, music for a woman who's going somewhere good. I arrived at 6:30 in the evening. The sun was just starting to drop behind the trees, throwing long shadows across the subdivision where Lisa and Brad lived. It was one of those developments where every house looks like it came from the same catalog. Gray siding, black shutters, 2 garages. Nice enough, but nothing you'd remember. I pulled into their driveway. It was empty. No cars, no lights in the windows. I figured maybe they'd run out to get last-minute supplies. Maybe Brad was picking up charcoal for the grill. Maybe they were getting balloons. I got out, stretched my back, and walked to the front door. That's when I saw it. A note, taped at eye level, written in Lisa's handwriting on a piece of yellow legal paper. Mom, so sorry. Brad's company surprised us with a long weekend at their lake house in Asheville. Too good to pass up. We left this morning. Keys under the blue flower pot. Make yourself at home. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. We'll be back Monday night. Happy early birthday. I read it twice. Then I peeled it off the door and read it again, standing there in my navy dress with white flowers along the hem, holding a lemon pound cake I'd driven 9 hours to deliver. A lake house. They'd gone to a lake house. Brad's company lake house. Brad's company lake house. The same weekend they had told me to come. The same weekend they had promised me a party. The same weekend my son was supposedly flying in from Seattle. I pulled out my phone and called Lisa. It rang 5 times and went to voicemail. Her recorded voice, cheerful and detached, told me to leave a message. I didn't leave one. I called Danny. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Hey, Mom. Happy almost birthday. Danny, are you at the airport? Are you flying to Charlotte? A pause. Charlotte? No. What are you talking about? Lisa said you were flying in. For my birthday party. She said the whole family was getting together. Another pause? Longer this time. Mom, I don't know anything about a party. Lisa hasn't talked to me in weeks. She sent me a text last month asking if I could lend Brad some money for a truck payment. I said no. That's the last I heard from her. The ground tilted under me. I reached for the porch railing and held on. Mom, are you okay? Where are you? I'm standing on your sister's porch in Charlotte. I drove 9 hours. I brought a cake. Nobody's here. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that broke open the thing I'd been trying not to see. Mom, she does this. You know she does this. She promises big and disappears. She's been doing it for years. I just didn't think she'd do it to you. Not like this. I hung up after a few more minutes. He offered to fly out. I told him no, I was fine, I'd figure it out. I wasn't fine, I'd figure it out. I wasn't fine. I was standing in a stranger's subdivision in a new dress, with a trunk full of gifts and a heart full of something that had cracked clean down the middle. I sat on the porch steps for a long time. The streetlights came on. A neighbor walked a dog past the house and waved. I waved back like everything was normal, like I was just a woman enjoying the evening air, and not a mother who'd just been discarded like leftover pasta in a refrigerator. I thought about going inside. The key was under the blue flower pot, just like she said. I could let myself in, eat the pasta, sleep in whatever guest room they had, and wait for them to come back on Monday and act like nothing had happened. But something in me refused. Something that had been building for years, maybe decades, a quiet fury that had been dressed up as patience for so long I'd forgotten what it really was. I stood up. I pulled out my phone and searched for hotels near the airport. I found a Hampton Inn with a room available. I booked it. Then I loaded the cake and the gifts back into the trunk, got in my car, and drove away from that dark house without looking back. The hotel room was clean and quiet. I hung my dress in the closet. I set the cake on the desk. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears come. Not the gentle kind, not the kind you wipe away with a tissue and move on. These were the deep ones, the ones that come from the basement of your chest, the ones you've been storing for years behind smiles and excuses and one more chance. I cried for the party that never existed, for the banner the grandkids supposedly made, for the grill Brad was supposed to fire up, for the brother who was never invited, for all the years I'd sent money and cards and love into a void and called it a relationship. When I was done, I washed my face, changed into my pajamas, and sat by the window looking out at the Charlotte skyline. The city glowed in the distance, all those buildings full of people living their lives, some of them probably alone too, some of them probably wondering tonight what they'd done wrong to end up here. I didn't sleep much, but sometime around 3 a.m, lying in that hotel bed staring at the ceiling, something shifted. Not peace, exactly. More like a decision that had been waiting a long time to be made. I was done. Done waiting for my daughter to become the person I kept hoping she'd be. Done funding her life and calling it love. Done being grateful for crumbs from a table I had built with my own hands. The next morning was my birthday, September 14th. 67 years old. I woke up, showered, put on my navy dress because I had bought it and I was going to wear it, and went downstairs to the hotel restaurant. It was mostly empty. A businessman on his laptop, a young couple sharing a waffle, and me, the waitress, a woman about my age with reading glasses on a chain and a name tag that said Denise, brought me coffee and asked if I was celebrating anything today. My birthday, I said. She looked at me, looked at the empty chair across from me, and smiled softly. Well, happy birthday, sweetheart. Breakfast is on me. I started to protest, but she held up her hand. Nope. It's your birthday and I said so. What'll it be? I ordered pancakes, blueberry, the kind I used to make for the kids on Saturday mornings when they were small enough to sit on phone books at the kitchen table. Denise brought them with a candle stuck in the top one, and she stood there while I blew it out. Make a wish, she said. I wished for clarity, and I think I got it. After breakfast, I checked my phone. A text from Danny. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. I'm sorry about Lisa. I'll call you tonight. A text from my friend Ruthie. Happy birthday. Beautiful. Hope you're having a wonderful time with the family. And a text from Lisa, sent at 11:15 the night before. Hope you got in okay. Happy day. Talk soon. 3 words in a row that meant nothing. Hope. Happy soon. All hollow. All habit. I didn't reply to her. I replied to Danny and Ruthie, and then I put my phone in my purse and went for a walk. Charlotte in September is warm but bearable. I walked through the hotel parking lot and onto a greenway trail I could see from my window. Trees were just starting to think about turning. The path was smooth and shaded and full of joggers and dog walkers and young mothers pushing strollers. I walked for an hour, maybe more. I didn't think about Lisa. I thought about my mother, about how she used to say that the hardest thing a woman ever does is stop giving herself away to people who don't notice. I hadn't understood her then. I was too busy giving. When I got back to the hotel, I sat at the desk and took out the little notebook I always carry. I started writing. Not a letter, not a journal entry. A list. The kind of list that changes things. First item, the money. For the past 6 years, I'd been sending Lisa $400 a month. It started when Emma was born, and Lisa said they were struggling with childcare costs. Then it became for Brad's truck payment. Then for the kids' activities. Then it just became a standing transfer, an automatic withdrawal I never questioned because questioning it would mean admitting what Ruthie had told me years ago, that my daughter called when she needed money and disappeared when she didn't. Second item, the house. My house in Savannah, the one my husband James and I bought in 1994, the one I had paid off by myself after he died, was in a living trust. Lisa and Danny were equal beneficiaries. But Lisa had never loved that house. She'd told me once it was too small, too old, too far from anything that mattered. Danny, on the other hand, had spent his summers there. He painted the porch with James. He'd learned to ride a bike on that sidewalk. He called it the family house. Third item, the locket. The one with the photograph of Lisa on my lap. It was meant for her, but sitting in that hotel room on my birthday, I realized something. The girl in that photograph, the one laughing on her mother's lap, didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. Maybe I'd invented her the way lonely people invent the versions of others that they need. I put the locket back in its box and wrote Danny's name on the tag instead. His daughter, my granddaughter Sophie, was 3 years old. She had Lisa's eyes but Danny's kindness. She deserved to have something of her great-grandmother's. She deserved to know where she came from. I stayed in Charlotte one more night. On my birthday evening, I took myself to dinner at an Italian restaurant I found on my phone. I sat at a table by the window and ordered chicken parmesan and a glass of red wine. The waiter brought a small dessert with a candle when he found out it was my birthday, and the couple at the next table sang to me. Strangers singing to a woman they'd never met, giving me more warmth in 30 seconds than my own daughter had given me in 3 years. I drove home the next day, 9 hours back through the Carolinas and into Georgia, past the same fields and billboards and rest stops. But the drive felt different. The Motown was still playing, but I was hearing it differently now. Every song about heartbreak sounded less like sadness and more like survival. When I pulled into my driveway in Savannah, the house looked the same. Yellow bungalow, tin roof, crepe myrtles. Walter had watered the flowers. The cat was asleep on the porch swing. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, but I wasn't. Monday morning, I went to the bank. First Coastal, the same branch I'd used since James was alive. The manager, a man named Gerald who'd handled our mortgage 20 years ago, sat me down and asked what I needed. I need to cancel an automatic transfer, I said. $400 a month going to a joint account in Charlotte. He pulled it up on his screen. You're sure, Mrs. Holloway? This has been active for 6 years. I'm sure. He typed. I signed. By the time I left, the money was mine again. Tuesday, I called my attorney. Mr. Branford had done our wills when James was diagnosed. He was retired now, but still took a few clients. I told him I wanted to revise my trust. I wanted Danny as the sole beneficiary of the house. I wanted to establish an education fund for Sophie using the money I'd been sending to Charlotte. I wanted Lisa removed from the trust entirely. He didn't flinch. He didn't ask why. He'd done this before. Families break in predictable ways and lawyers learn not to be surprised. I'll have the documents ready by Friday, he said. And Margaret, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right call. I thanked him and drove home with the windows down, letting the warm Georgia air fill the car. I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy exactly, not yet, but unburdened. Like I'd been carrying a suitcase full of rocks and had finally set it down. A week later, Danny called on a Sunday evening. We talked for an hour. I told him everything. The drive, the dark house, the note, the hotel, the list. He listened the way he always did, quiet and steady, the way his father used to listen. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said when I finished. "I didn't know it was that bad." "It wasn't bad all at once," I said. "It was bad slowly. That's how it works. You don't notice the water rising until you're already drowning." He told me he wanted to come visit. He wanted to bring Sophie. He wanted her to see the house, the porch, the fireflies. He wanted her to see the house, the porch, the fireflies. He wanted her to know her grandmother. He came 3 weeks later. He flew into Savannah with Sophie on his hip and a duffel bag over his shoulder and walked through my front door like he'd never left. Sophie took one look around and said, "Grandma, your house smells like cookies." It didn't. It smelled like pine sol and old books. But I went into the kitchen and started baking because that's what grandmothers do when a 3-year-old says your house smells like cookies. You make it true. We had 4 days together. I taught Sophie to pick tomatoes in the garden. Danny fixed the screen door that had been rattling since April. We cooked James's spaghetti recipe, the one with too much garlic and never enough basil. And we ate it on the porch while Sophie chased fireflies in the yard with a mason jar she refused to put a lid on because she said the bugs needed to breathe. On his last night, after Sophie was asleep in the guest room, Danny and I sat on the porch swing. The air was thick and warm and the crickets were loud, and the stars were out. The way they only are in Savannah, low and bright and close enough to touch. "Mom," he said quietly, "have you heard from Lisa? She's called twice since my birthday." I didn't answer. "Are you going to?" "I don't know. Maybe someday, but not because she wants me to. Only if I want to." "There's a difference." He nodded. Then he said something that sat with me long after he left. "You know, Dad used to say that love isn't what people promise. It's what they do when nobody's watching. You've been doing it your whole life. It's time someone did it for you." I reached over and took his hand. "You already are, Danny. You already are." The next morning, I drove him and Sophie to the airport. Sophie clung to my neck and said, "Grandma, next time I'm bringing my pillow. I want to sleep in the cookie house forever." I laughed and kissed her forehead and watched them disappear through the sliding doors. My chest ached, but it was the right kind of ache, the kind that means you've loved someone and they've loved you back, and the distance between you is just geography, not silence. A month later, a letter arrived from Charlotte, Lisa's handwriting on the envelope. I recognized it immediately, the same loopy L, the same slanted S. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight. Then I opened it. It was short, typed, not handwritten, which told me everything about how much effort she'd put into it. She said she'd noticed the deposits had stopped. She said she was confused and hurt. She said she didn't understand why I was punishing her for a simple change of plans. She said she wanted to discuss this like adults. I folded the letter. I put it back in the envelope. I opened the drawer in the hallway table, the one where I keep stamps and rubber bands and things I don't need but can't throw away, and I placed it inside. Then I closed the drawer. Some conversations don't need to happen. Some explanations would only give the other person a chance to rewrite the story, to make themselves the victim, to turn your clarity into their grievance. I wasn't going to give her that. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to explain what should never have needed explaining. You don't invite your mother to a birthday party and leave for a lake house. You don't tape a note to a door like she's a delivery driver. You don't send a text that says talk soon when you mean don't bother me. And you don't get to call it a simple change of plans. I am 67 years old. My house is small and yellow and smells like whatever I decide to bake that day. My cat sleeps on the porch swing. My garden has tomatoes in summer and camellias in winter. My neighbor Walter waves every morning, and my friend Ruthie sits with me at Bible study every Wednesday, and Danny calls every Sunday, and Sophie sends me drawings of things she says are horses but look more like clouds with legs. I don't hear from Lisa. I don't expect to. The lake house photos were on Facebook for a while. Her and Brad and the kids smiling on a dock, holding up fish they probably didn't catch, looking like the kind of family you see in a picture frame at the store. I don't look at them anymore. Here's what I know now. What I wish I'd known sooner. Love is not a standing transfer you set up and forget. It's not $400 a month that buys you a place at the table. It's not a party that exists only in a phone call and disappears the moment something better comes along. Love is Danny fixing my screen door without being asked. Love is Sophie saying the house smells like cookies. Love is Denise the waitress putting a candle in my pancakes. Love is a 3-year-old leaving the lid off a jar because she thinks the fireflies need to breathe. I am not a backup plan. I am not a note taped to a door. I am not leftover pasta in a refrigerator. I am Margaret Holloway. I am 67 years old. I have a son who sees me, a granddaughter who reaches for me, a house that holds me, and a heart that finally knows the difference between being needed and being loved. And that is more than enough. If you're listening to this and you've ever driven a long way for someone who wasn't there when you arrived, if you've ever stood on a porch reading words that made you feel like nothing, if you've ever sent money and gifts and years of your life into a silence that never answered back, I want you to tell you something. You are not too old to start over. You are not too tired to say enough. You are not too kind to walk away from people who mistake your kindness for weakness. The people who love you don't make you drive 9 hours and then leave a note. The people who love you show up. They show up with phone calls on Sunday and sticky drawings of cloud horses and screen doors they fix without being asked. They show up not because they have to, but because the thought of not being there never crosses their mind. Those people exist. I promise you they do, and sometimes they've been there all along waiting for you to stop looking in the wrong direction. So stop looking, turn around, set your own table, light your own candles, bake your own cake and put a candle in it yourself if you have to. And wait for the ones who walk through the door, not because you invited them, but because they couldn't stay away. They'll come. They always do. And when they do, you'll know. Because for the first time in a long time, you won't have to wonder if you matter. You'll just feel it, like a small hand reaching for yours in a garden, like fireflies in a jar with no lid, like coming home to a house that knows your name. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you have your own story, I hope you find the voice to tell it. We all deserve that. We all deserve to be heard, to be seen, to stop driving long roads for people who were never waiting at the other end. Happy birthday to you, wherever you are, whatever age you're turning, whatever door you're standing in front of right now. Walk through it. The other side is yours.